Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Pep Talks. We are joined today by the very gorgeous Abigail Langridge, founder of It's Your Time. And as I do with all of my guest episodes, I'm going to pass over to Abigail to introduce herself and tell us a little bit more about what it is she does. So over to you, Abigail.
Thank you, Sue. Hello, everybody. So, I have taken time management and brought it into the current time and era where we all spin so many plates that we just want to get back into a cupboard and hunker down for the winter. It's very practical, it's very realistic, it's no Eisenhower matrices, it's no theories, it's time management that works for all of us that are being mothers, wives, sisters, dog walkers, business owners, etc. It's not the balance, it's the blend of life and how it actually works, and it's including us in our own lives. So it's, as I say, it's a very practical version of time management because it actually works.
Amazing. I love that. And I loved that phrase that you used there about it's including us. Because as you know, and as all the listeners of Pep Talks know, my work is all about the human behind the business. Yes, it's about business growth. Yes, it's about building a business on your terms, but it is ultimately about you, the person behind the business. So I know we're going to have a great conversation here. So tell me a little bit more about what brought you to doing what you're doing now, because I know this isn't what you've always done. So tell us a little bit of your backstory and what's got you to this point now.
So I've organised people fairly similar to those that I work with now. They're not a million miles away. Um, I've come from the legal industry and I was a PA for well over 20 years, so organising in that capacity. Organising people that didn't particularly want to be organised, and also organising people that were so organised that punctuality just ran through their blood. So real diverse people that I've worked with, and over that quite huge amount of time, I was picking up things, including bad habits myself, but picking up the human behaviours of what works and what doesn't work, and why those things then don't work. Um, Picking them up quite subconsciously because it was never something that I intended to do. But over time, and I got older, and I think this is why this is why I've now niched. I'm in year two of this business, and I stepped away of the PA world was because I naturally outgrew it. I wanted to create more impact for those that I was working with, and including myself. I wanted to have put myself back in my own life. One of my commonly used phrases with people is "I put you back in your life," and that also includes me now because very much so through the PA world, I was organising people and their lives, but
Yeah.
actually my life was slipping away. So I felt like a fraud because I was taking things away and, giving them the balance and things that they wanted. But I've got three children and I was spending very little time with them. I was just, barely talking to my husband, and it was just wasn't felt like a real fraud. So there were lots of different things that were changing. I was hitting my 40s. I wanted something quite different out of life. Anyone that's in the glorious world of perimenopause knows that just sometimes things just change and we don't give ourselves that time, recognition, and permission to just accept that it's a good thing. We try and fight these new phases of life, but actually, since I have accepted it, life has been enjoyable again. Uh,
Yeah.
so this is why I changed because it was a very organic change because it was happening to me once I stopped fighting it. But also the impact that then I was having with people that a couple of people were transitioning from the PA stuff into what I was doing. So the difference now is I don't take anything from clients, like a PA takes a list and goes off and does those things. I don't do any of that. All of our work that we do is live. They share their calendars on screen. We action, we message, we email, whatever it looks like. We're, drafting KPIs, literally anything. Um, because after every single time I have touch point with a client, they regain clarity and control. And those are the two biggest parts of my business, really. And I think, hand on heart, I could say 100% success rate that every client that I'm working with and have kind of graduated from me would agree that is exactly what's happened because
Amazing.
the difference between working with someone as their PA and more like a mentor role that I'm in now, is that they're living on a conveyor belt that will never end. They're constantly just, can you go and do X, X, Y, Z? Brilliant, that's done. Here's some more stuff. And that does work, and there's a huge place for that. But for me and the kind of people I started to work with, MDs, heads of department, they actually wanted that control back themselves. They wanted to
Yeah.
do this stuff themselves. They didn't always want to rely on somebody else. And also, time management is a life skill. It's not something that you can just really pick off a shelf, deal with it when life is busy. It's a life skill. You use it when you're planning your wedding, or
Yeah.
it transfers to everything. So what I do now is far more of a molding to how time management can work in their life that they then take away forever, as opposed to this is what's going to work for where you are right now. And actually, if things change, it's all going to fall apart again because
Yeah.
that's not sustainable. So,
No, that education piece is so huge, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
not just telling someone how to do it, but also explaining why it works. Because, like you say, they can then take whatever it is that you've shared with them and they can apply it to the thing over there as well as the thing over there because they understand the mechanics of it. It's not just a process. They're now actually, oh, that's why it works in that way, and that's why the way I work is different to the way somebody else might work because actually I need to do things in this order, whereas they need to do things in that order. And I'm sure there's a lot of crossover, but equally, we are all unique human beings. We've all got unique situations. We've all got unique skills, talents, weaknesses, strengths. And by you working with people on that individual level and mentoring them based on what they are capable of doing, and then educating them and filling the gaps where they might have a weakness, that gives them such strength, as you say, that clarity and that control to then go away and just feel really empowered that they can do this stuff on their own. Because what we don't want in your world or in my world is people working with us forever in a day. We want to be able to coach them, mentor them, give them the skills that they need that they can then take away and use in the long term. And that only comes from education. It doesn't come from just doing. Well, it comes from them doing stuff, but us doing stuff for them is never gonna
absolutely.
bring up that skill base like you were sharing.
Yeah,
I love that.
absolutely. Yes. And it was that impact that was the real pivot and the kind of cherry on the cake for me because I wanted to build something that just lasted for me, was more scalable, fitted around my family so I could have my own life, but
Yeah,
also, as you say, benefited them for the long term after they've left me. So it was building the habits and just tweaking the habits that are already in existence that they're already using. Um, so they're not, so when a curveball lands, they don't think, oh, they don't freak out, they don't
yeah,
lose control. They can quite happily, move things, let people down almost happily without, that guilt's always going to be there. We're human, but they can just do it and think, right, okay, that's fine. This is how I thought today was going to go. It doesn't look like that
yeah,
anymore, but I can do this. And they can go through that thought process because we've laid the
yeah.
foundations, not in their
It's almost like you've
DNA.
calmed their nervous system down as well, I'm thinking,
Yeah,
by
yeah,
by them feeling a bit more in control of stuff, when that curveball comes in, and so many of us go into panic mode, as you say, and we end up in that fight or flight situation where we're like, oh, shit, I don't know what to do, and you're sort of almost like a rabbit in headlights, thinking, well, do I go left? Do I go right? What do I do? And you waste so much time and energy just worrying about what the next thing is. But when we can calm that nervous system down in that moment and go, actually, I'm in control of this, I'm okay, everything's going to be fine, I'm perfectly safe, we can make those rational decisions, like you say. And yes, there might be emotion associated with them, but we can step much more into that logical mind and that ability to go, okay, curveballs come in, but I can do something about this. And so, yeah, a lot of what you're doing, and you may not have realized this, is actually calming down their nervous system at the same time as
your audio
educating
has
them in
gone,
the.
Sue. I can't hear you anymore.
Can't you hear me?
Oh, you're back. You're back. Okay, there was
You
about three
froze on
minutes
me
I couldn't hear
briefly.
you.
Right.
Yeah, we're back.
Cool. So yeah, I was just saying that you have given them the skills to calm their nervous system as well as the skills to actually manage their time. Because when we've got that calmer nervous system, we are able to manage those curveball moments, those panic-inducing moments. The panic doesn't kick in for as long. It probably kicks in briefly, but we
Right.
can grab it and we
Yeah.
can go, I'm okay, I'm safe. I can
Right.
do the thing I need to do to move forwards. Yes, as you say, I might end up letting somebody down, but I can be in control of that rather than it just running away with me.
Quite.
So, yeah, I love
Absolutely.
that. And another thing I just wanted to touch on, I jotted down a couple of things that you, as you were speaking earlier, you mentioned something about picking things up subconsciously,
Mhm.
and I'd love to know if there's anything in particular that stands out for you that you picked up in your previous work that is now really helping you in your current work.
So natural rhythms of how us humans operate, whether you're a morning person or a night owl, that kind of thing. So using me as an example, I'm not great in the mornings. It does take me a little while to kind of come together and things, not because I particularly go to bed that late, but it's just the way my body operates. So listening to how our body operates naturally without how we've been governed, because most of
Yes.
us have worked within 9 to 5 in some capacity, is really quite hard to do
Mm,
initially because we are governed to get up. If you haven't ever worked, for example, then you're probably governed if you have children. There's something in our lives that will get us somewhere for 9 o'clock in the morning, somewhere. But actually, if we're not programmed like that naturally, we then fight it. And this is me for a long time, but I prefer, and anyone will get the best of me from 9:30, 10 onwards. I mean, sort of 11 o'clock is actually my optimal time. Stop for lunch and then, late afternoon. And right now, for example, we're sort of coming up to 2:30 is the best time of the day. Completely throws the school run out of the window. But you learn to work with this. But look, thinking about the kind of people I was working with, one of the guys that I was working with, he had 7 children. Now, I know, and he worked full time. He's now a partner of the firm, but he just worked better at certain times of the day. So, although you can't completely optimize your calendar off the back of how you operate, you can still optimize how you are feeling during those moments. So if you have got a heavy meeting, you do have to have your head down. You can still set yourself up so you're not feeling like you've just fallen out of bed. So there are ways around it, even if you are in a very heavy corporate environment. So it was the natural rhythms of just looking at the people around me, where some people would almost skip into work, where they're quite, they've been up for hours, they've exercised, they've got everything done, and then I was arriving quite silently, just wanted to get on, and then I'll talk to you in a little while. So those
yeah.
kind of differences, because then I would, as a PA back then, I would have my catch ups because I'd want to go and download their brain. Certain people I wouldn't go and approach before lunchtime because it's almost pointless. You're not going to get a full download out of them. So those kind of things, really picking up on the fact that we are human and that, food picks us up again. Food might, depending on what you've eaten. So, like the survival stuff, I think really is ignored massively, but it helps us
Yes.
out enormously.
Yeah, I remember when I was training to be a teacher back in the day. I've got a very patchwork career. I remember learning about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And it's so insightful. We were learning about it from the perspective of the students in front of us in the classroom and knowing that the temperature of the room needed to be sensible, not too hot, not too cold. They need to be fed and watered. And that's pretty much it, really, for them to be able to concentrate. They didn't really need anything else. Good sleep, yes, but bear in mind I was teaching A-level students.
Mm.
Who knows what their sleep was like.
Yeah.
But it was really important, I think, that we recognize that actually those physiological needs of our body need to be the things that we focus on first before we try and layer on top anything else. Because if we're feeling too cold or too hot or dehydrated or hungry or sleepy, then we're not going to be able to concentrate on the higher cognitive tasks that we want to be doing as business owners. Um, and as you quite rightly say, everybody's energy rhythms are different. We've all got different circadian rhythms, but we've also, as females particularly, we've got different rhythms throughout the month as well. And honoring those. So just knowing what they are for you as a person. So for the people listening, a question to ask you is, do you know what your natural rhythms are? Do you know when you are at your highest energy in the day? Do you know when you're at your lowest energy in the day? Do you know what it feels like after you've had a meal? Do you feel energized or do you feel sluggish? How do you wake up in the morning? All of these sorts of questions that you can start asking yourself to think about what your natural rhythm is like, and then trying to work your day around that rather than fighting against it. And I love the fact you said, certain people you knew you would not go and speak to till later on in the day. And that's without them even telling you. You've just picked up on that naturally.
Yeah.
And we all know this stuff. It's just often we don't tune into it,
Yeah.
or we don't acknowledge it, or we try and push against it, and we try and pretend that we're robots and we can work 9 to 5, the same like level of energy every day of the week. It's complete bullshit. We
Yeah.
just can't. Men can more than women. They have
Mhm.
a 24-hour energy cycle. We obviously have a 28-day, roughly,
Yeah.
energy cycle. Um, but even so, men can't be at the same level of energetic capacity all day, every day.
Yeah.
There's still going to be peaks and troughs. So, knowing that is absolutely vital, I think. And yes, you talk a lot about time management. I talk about energy management, but the two can very definitely be blended together.
Well,
But we need to understand both of them for our own personal
yeah, absolutely.
for our own hot body and our own brain. We need to understand how it works for us, not how it works for somebody down the road.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Um, so how are we doing for time? We've got loads of time. Um, Tell me a little bit about what you do to manage your own energy. I know one of the things you do, but the listeners won't, so I'd love you to
Yes.
share it with them.
So I walk my dog this morning. I went out on a lovely longer dog walk, a good 6 miles this morning. And I'm also a runner, which is probably the thing you were thinking about. So I
Yes.
run avid, loyal park runner here every Saturday. Well, if you don't see me on social media, you might see me in person because we travel around quite a lot. Um, because it's something I can do relatively easily. And I'm in it for the sprint finish. That's all I go for. I love that dopamine at the end. I adore the sprint finish. And I find it really liberating. When I'm running, I feel like I can achieve anything. I mean, those hormones are really working in your favor when you're running, or doing exercise. And it helps me stay positive. It helps me in many, many ways. The mental side of running is probably why I run, to be fair. I don't take headphones. I don't take anything. I don't take my phone, literally trainers, and that is it. You'll never see me with any tech when I'm running. And that's one of the biggest ways I manage my energy, but also on the days, because I am very much in perimenopause, been on HRT for a couple of years. I now take magnesium, and I'm kind of at the stage where you think, I wonder if I should buy a Monday to Sunday pill pot at
Yes.
45. Am I
I've
really
got
at
one
that
of
stage
those.
already? Oh my goodness. Yeah, because at dinner I'm taking 5 or 6 supplements, and my husband's like, shouldn't you just buy one of those pill pots? No, I'm not at that stage yet. So, in denial. So I'm taking supplements because I recognise that I do have a balanced diet. I do eat vegetables. I do also like chocolate, but I think I need a bit of help at this stage in my life. As much as HRT can be great, it certainly isn't a fix. And on the days where I do know that my hormone is having, well, sometimes I wonder if I've even got some. I do try and just ride the storm rather
Yeah.
than, obviously I show up for clients and commitments, but other things I will push. If I can move it, I will push it
Yeah.
because with me especially, I need a good 8 hours sleep minimum. I'm not, I can have 6, but you're talking maybe 2 nights of 6 hours,
Yeah.
and I am like I've never slept before. I'm kind of useless. So I have to make sure I'm sleeping enough. Um, and I could have been a sloth in my previous life because I could probably go for 11 or 12 hours if I didn't have to get up in the morning. So running and sleep are the two main things I would say to manage my energy. And
Yeah.
then, I do drink water. I probably don't drink enough. I tend to give myself a smaller glass purposely because if I was to walk around with a pint glass, I just wouldn't ever drink it.
Right.
But just,
Interesting.
yeah, so mind over matter completely. But
Yeah.
these half pint glasses, I'll drink about six of those a day because they're smaller.
Yeah.
So those are the three things they're my non-negotiable.
I mean, you're speaking my language because, yeah, I mean, again, anybody who's listened to the podcast for any length of time will know I talk about this all the time. And I have that background in personal training and nutrition, as well as all the other bits and pieces that I've dabbled in over the years.
Mm.
And for me, I always say that sleep is the foundation of everything because we tend to, if we have had good sleep, we are more likely to drink the water, we are more likely to eat better, we are more likely to move our bodies. So it all then has that
Mm.
amazing ripple effect. And I do think we went through a period of time when there was this like you must get up at 5 o'clock and do this, that, and the other. But what was it, miracle morning? And I've been guilty. I'm going to hold my hands up. I was guilty of falling into the trap of miracle mornings. And actually, it is amazing. It does feel amazing to have done some exercise and some meditation and some journaling and whatever the other bits and pieces were. I can't remember now, but some stuff for yourself first thing in the morning before the house has woken up. That felt incredible. But by 8:30 in an evening, I was on my knees. And my husband's not an early bird, he's very much a night owl. So, from a relationship perspective, it wasn't really working. And so, I think we have to be mindful of that. And like you say, I think there was a various people have this badge of honor of I can survive on 5 hours sleep a night, and I do question that. I think, do you really know what it feels like to have a full night's sleep,
Quite.
and to be fully hydrated and to be fully energized rather than sort of in a half energy state? And if
Mm.
you've always been in a half energy state, you never know any difference. So you believe that you've got this, that 5 hours is fine or 6 hours is fine or whatever, but actually you don't know what it's like to have more.
Yeah.
So
Right.
yeah, you're absolutely speaking my language there. Um, and I loved also that you shared that if you've got things that you can move around on your lower energy days, that you will do that. And I mean, I did exactly that last week in that. So we're recording this on the 3rd of June for those people who are listening. We're recording this on the 3rd of June. It's wintry outside here, where I'm recording from. Last week we were in a heat wave. So last week on one of the days the weather was so heavy and I felt so energy depleted just because of the weather that I rescheduled a couple of things that could be moved. So like virtual coffees and stuff like that. I was like, this isn't the day to do this. I'm not going to turn up as my best self. The person's not going to get a great experience on this call.
Yeah.
As you say, client calls, no issue, but anything that was sort of beyond client work got moved. And I think that's something else that is worth sort of exploring and stressing a little bit here, that when you run your own business, you are in control of your diary. And if things don't feel aligned for you on that day, and they're things that you can move, then move them, because nobody wants you turning up in a depleted state. And all it's going to do is take more of your energy and have a negative ripple effect
Yeah.
as the day and the week progresses. So
Mm.
really do tune into that and think, is this something I actually need to do today? And if it's not, then maybe think about rescheduling.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Um, how so it was spoken about physical energy. Is there anything you do to and you spoke about mental stuff when you were talking about your running. Do you find I'm getting the impression when you talk about the running, it's mental health you're referring to. Correct me if I'm wrong.
mental load as well. Mental
Mental
load is
load.
huge with what I do. So although I say I'm a time management specialist, I always start with the mental load. So time management is the vehicle I use that turns out with, the
Yeah,
practicality, some people might time block, etc. I always start with the mental load because there's no point using time blocking and actual tools to support us with, showing up at certain times, etc. if the mental noise is so heavy and loud that actually you're waking up and you're still as confused as you once was. So the calendar can look really organized, but actually, as I say, if the mental noise is just completely derailing you during the day, it's completely pointless. So I actually rewind things, almost ignore what's going on at the moment when I first meet someone. And my first question to every single person I talk to, what are you thinking about at the moment? Because what they're thinking about is playing on their mind at that point. It could be that the dog ate their Weetabix, or like classic example, like literally whatever it is. I haven't been for my run because I got to bed too late, whatever that is. So then we deal with it in the moment because they're already thinking about it. So we start to download, clear the mental load because using a bit of science, neuroscience, our brains have got no time capacity, as I'm sure you know. You can keep giving it stuff like a post-it note, it will just keep going, yep, brilliant, thanks. And the list gets getting longer and longer.
yeah,
At no point will it say, it's now Saturday, you've now got three things that should have been done yesterday because now it's the weekend. It's got literally no idea. It only really has an idea about night and day because of how we rest for such a long time. Um, so I clear the mental load, and in the moment we will action things, and then that's how I get into prioritization and things like that. But I start there because physically you are making space in your head. People treat their brains as cupboards,
yeah,
storage facilities, and not processors as they are built for. So you give your brain 25 things to do without intending to give it
yeah,
things to do, and it's trying to fix them. It's trying to resolve those things when actually, having a conversation with your husband isn't something that you need to fix. It's just something that you need to finish. So many reasons why I start there, but it's backed by science. And again, like using the energy management works for us, I work with the way the brain works at,
yeah.
functioningly. That doesn't make any sense. It's a word, but I couldn't actually say it.
We know
The
what you
way,
mean.
yeah, the way the brain functions, I'll say it like that. Um, because again, we're trying to use the brain in a way that it isn't designed for, and then that causes other issues, which then makes you even more tired, as you've touched on it. Then you struggle with decisions because you're trying to get it to do something it isn't designed to do.
Yeah,
Um, so yes, I run for the mental load as well as the mental health, because although I might not have done a brain dump before a run, when I get back, if it's on a Friday, because our brain dump tend to be on a Friday, um, I will do a brain dump, and the things that come up, I write down everything. I don't just write down tasks, which is generally where people get their to-do list from. They do it from the conscious mind, which is just the stuff that's off the top of your head. I go way deeper than that, subconscious. Bring up your calendar. I go back. I go forward, and really clear out everything. Songs in my head, things I've forgotten from the shopping list,
yeah,
literally everything, because your brain has got no idea between something to do, songs, what the weather's doing, colours of the wall, everything. So, yes, so that's another part of what I do, which is fundamentally probably the most important bit because the rest of it filters off the back of it.
yeah. I couldn't. Yeah, again, I couldn't agree more with that. There's a whole podcast episode somewhere way back when I can't remember which number episode it is now, where I talk about mental load because I genuinely believe it's one of the biggest things holding people back from their potential
Yes.
because they are just carrying too much. And we talk about people, carrying stuff on plates and all that and juggling balls and things, but actually, it's not a physical carry, it's a mental carry. We're just carrying so many things. And I'm like you, get it all out on paper, literally like get it out of your brain, and then you can start to rationalize what's on that
Yeah.
list of things. Like you say, if it's songs, we can just sort of cross them out, they've gone out of the brain. But if it is your to-do list, then you can start to look at it and go, oh, actually, it's not quite as bad as I thought, or
Exactly.
that it's quite long, but which of these, like one or two which of these things on here are the most important things I need to get done today and which can actually be
Yeah.
ditched or delegated or done on a different day?
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
You can start to lift those things into real time.
yeah,
Because I think a lot of people get tripped over. They want to and feel that they should do it all that day. They see the massive plethora of like stuff, then they've given themselves overwhelm, but it was
yeah,
already in their head anyway. So the fact that they've taken it all out of their head, as you say, a good third of it usually gets crossed out. Time has probably passed as well, so a lot of this stuff sometimes isn't even relevant anymore. And you can, with clients, I'll say, well, we don't have to do that today. If you're using life circumstances and you're not listening to other people's obligations, because I think a lot of deadlines come off the back of what other people think you should do things by.
for sure.
You can put things in for, next month and then even sort of September, October, as long as you're not losing those ideas and they're not falling through the cracks.
Yeah,
It's it's that almost like a myth that you don't have to put everything in your diary like this week. Your diary doesn't have to look like a fine art of time blocking with colours for everything. It can just be, and this is how I use my calendar, as a complete moving target.
yes,
I move things around all the time because it's my calendar. So yeah, but a lot of clients, I'll look at their diary and I will say to them, and I've said many times to current clients, when are you going to toilet in that? I wouldn't, that makes me come out in hives just looking at that because they're like, yeah, but it's all time blocked. Right, but you're a human.
yeah,
Even a robot might struggle to function like that. So yeah, it's
yeah.
being
And I,
very realistic is so important.
yeah, absolutely. And it's like having that structure from which you can deviate, isn't it? It's about having some structure to your week so that you actually get stuff done. Because if we're purely in flow state and we're like, oh, well, I'll just go with whatever I feel like doing at any point in time,
Yeah,
nothing's going to get done, right? So
quite.
you need a bit of structure to go, right, I know that these are my most important tasks this week. These are my diary commitments this week. This is where I plan to go to the gym. This is where I plan to have a run. This is where I'm meeting a friend for a coffee, whatever it might be. You've got that structure, but then allowing yourself the freedom to go, actually, I can't do that task right here, right now, because I'm not in the right energy. My brain's not in the right place. I need to move that to Thursday or whatever. And that means there needs to be space in the diary to allow for that flexibility.
Absolutely.
And I remember when we were in the lockdowns, and I remember somebody saying to me, and this is slightly unrelated but very related, so bear with me. I remember somebody saying to me about the school day and how children are really only learning for 2 hours a day in the entire school day. Their actual like learning time is 2 hours. So if you think about it, they come into the classroom, they settle down, the teacher does a bit of a brief of what it is they're going to do. They then do the thing, then there's a bit of disruption, so that breaks up the session. Then they all get back on track. Then they stop and do the debrief at the end of the lesson, and so it continues throughout the day. And they do 2 hours in a 6 hour day at school, that give or
Yeah.
take. We can apply that to our work, right? Even if you are choosing to work from 9 to 5,
Mm,
you are not working effectively and efficiently from 9 to 5. You
quite.
might get 4 hours
Yeah. Yeah.
of really good work. So if we honor that and we create the space around it and we go, okay, so 4 hours out of 8 is actual working time.
Mhm.
That's another 4 hours that I have where I can be flexible across the day or across the week, depending
Yeah.
upon what's going on. That allows for so much more freedom and so much more tapping into where you're at right now and doing the tasks that match your energy and being able to go to the toilet and eat your lunch and have a chat at over coffee or whatever.
Mhm.
And I
Yep.
think that's what we need to retrain ourselves to do because I think so many of us have still got that corporate mindset of I must be at my desk 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And actually, there's no way you're making the best use of all of those hours sitting at your desk for 8 hours.
Exactly. Yeah, I completely agree. And there's no way I was either, because it
Yeah.
was just, it's, we all sit in the pods. I mean, using me as an example, it was a big open plan sea of kind of open desks. I mean, it was awful. Um, it wasn't always like that, but they changed it to make it, and ironically, they changed it so we could have more access to each other, but then you're penned in, like with small fences around them. It was ever so odd. Um, and it was just, I'd almost need the connection to get up and walk around and just to talk to another human being. But I was so scared of communicating outside of lunch hour or before, you start work or whatever, because it wasn't, I don't know, the done thing, or I
Yeah.
wasn't allowed to, or something like that. But actually, once I'd had that connection and stretch and just changed things up every 90 minutes or something, I was good to go again. And then it was,
Yeah.
but this is again working in alignment with the way your brain's designed to work. I mean, I know the Pomodoro technique gets used quite a lot, but one thing that the Pomodoro doesn't really allow for is the kind of settling in time.
Mm.
It's, you can't just go, right, for 30 20 minutes, I'm going to be in flow, because who can really predict when they're going to be in flow? And then you need a kind of 10 minutes to get into it. What are you doing? Bit of research, if you're drafting an email or whatever. So I make the Pomodoro technique actually much, much longer. So very, very few approaches work for everyone.
Yeah.
Nothing is ever going to fit everybody. So it's just taking how you work as a human, being realistic that on some days, even though you really, really wanted to get a lot done, if you're not feeling it, listen to your body, because actually by doing that, you're going to feel way better for just moving some stuff. And then, tomorrow's another day. I think we spend far more time beating ourselves up over what we haven't done, rather than going, do you know what? We get to go again tomorrow. What's the one thing that I actually can't, shy away from? And then breaking that down if you can, so that that one thing that is your non-negotiable is the best thing that you do that day. Because I think it's just, we can't achieve 10,000 things in a day, or even five, to be honest, it's
No.
just crazy.
No. Um, no, I completely agree on everything that you said on this call. That's been amazing. So we're going to wrap things up. I'm going to ask you one final question, which is a question I ask to all of my guests. And it is, how do you bring peace and ease into your life and business whilst you are building a business from passion and purpose? So how are you bringing peace and ease into your life and your business?
I love that question. That makes me feel at ease just thinking about it, actually. So Wednesdays, I'd never have any client commitments. Um, it's kind of just ended up like that, but I've also kind of rode with it, if that's correct context, because having a day to myself midweek enables me to have a 2 hour lunch. I mean, we were talking about, before the podcast, I was kind of hunkering down on the sofa where it's kind of gone back into winter and it's really quite chilly. But I could do that. I did a 6 mile dog walk with the dog. I've got some things that I need to prep for, so I could just sit on the sofa and ruminate over them. And I find that it really, really, and I hate this phrase, but it fits. It fills my cup again to go again Thursday, Friday. Fridays are my busiest day of the week. Um, and I need that reboost of energy midweek to make sure I've exercised, because I can't always do it Mondays and Tuesdays because of other commitments. Wednesday, I always exercise of some description. I fell over a couple of weeks ago at park run, so I've not been able to run properly, but I've been out for a really long dog walk instead. And it just means I can have the day, I can have a much slower day
Yeah.
on my own time scale. And that for me brings enormous amount of peace. I look forward to Wednesdays, actually sometimes more than a weekend, because the whole day is mine. Whereas at a weekend, I've got lots of moving parts, family
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Whereas on a Wednesday during the day, the whole day is mine. And I find it really empowering and liberating. And don't get me wrong, I still get but there must be something I can do. The whole masculine energy does, kick in. Um, but
It's
it's,
giving that freedom though, isn't it?
yeah,
It's
I
it's
just love
it's
it.
like we were talking about earlier. It's having that flexibility and that freedom in your diary and going, actually, on a Wednesday, I can have a day just to myself. Or if there is something that I really need to get done and I want to do it on a Wednesday, I can because I've got that
Absolutely.
space in my diary.
Yeah,
And there's no beating up of yourself then that, well, I should be working. It's more
yeah,
like actually there is something I do need to get done. So let's just do it
yeah.
rather than the shoulds coming into play.
Absolutely. Yes, it gives me enormous flex. Sometimes there might be a networking meeting that comes up on a Wednesday and I can work around
Yeah.
it and that works fine. But it just gives me for those weeks where I am a bit lower than normal, usually hormonally, it's only really Monday, Tuesday, and then I think, well, Wednesday I'm kind of I
Yeah.
don't have to necessarily get dressed if I don't want to. So not happened yet. But it's yeah, so that is absolutely how I'm growing the business because it's got to work around me because if it doesn't work around me, I'm not going to be able to deliver what the clients need from me to obviously then for them to build the habits and stuff that they need. So
Yeah.
yes, so that's what works for me. But
Mm,
yeah, it's putting it all in a pot and coming up with your own version, isn't it? So, and there's been many
absolutely.
versions of this. But
Which is why I asked the question because every single
yeah,
guest gives me a different answer. And
yeah,
so, for people who are tuning in, if you go back and listen to the other guest episodes where I asked that question, even if you just whiz right to the end and listen to that answer to that question, you will see that everybody is giving me a completely different answer. They are all valid and they are all the perfect answer for that person.
yeah,
And you might just find something that works for you. If you haven't yet found your way of bringing peace and ease into your life, then maybe these little nuggets that these guests are sharing will give you some ideas to play with and explore and just give them a go and see what works for you.
perfect. Well,
Oh, this has been an amazing conversation, Abigail. Thank you so much for coming on. As ever, we've gone over the usual half an hour. It's always the way, but
yeah,
that's because we've had a great conversation.
it's been great.
How can people connect with you, find you? What's the best way of people getting in touch with you if they want to find out more?
LinkedIn is my place where I hang out. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so I would suggest going to find me there, Abigail Langridge. Um, People can join my email list if they wish to. But LinkedIn, I would say, is a good way, first port of call.
Amazing. So I will make sure links to LinkedIn and any other places that Abigail would like to connect with you are down in the show notes. So you can go and find them there. And I will say thank you again to everybody for listening. Thank you again, Abigail, for joining us
Thank
today.
you.
And I will be back with you next time with another pep talk.